Yo, what's up, guys? Welcome back. And today, we're going to be watching a video, a very special video. It's about, can planet cities really exist? I always like this one because, I'm a Star Wars fan and all that. We're going to be talking about Coruscant. I already watched a little bit of it, so it should be pretty interesting to see. But for right now, let me just, let me go ahead and start it.
The biggest city concept ever.
Ooh, here we go.
An entire planet covered in urban area, also known as an Ecumenopolis. Totally sci-fi.
Ecumenopolis?
And yet, it's inspired real architects and urban planners who seriously study this idea of a planet-wide city. Because isn't it really the ultimate human flex? A world that never stops being a city, with hundreds of billions and maybe trillions of people living across thousands of levels.
Should I turn this up?
Let's take Coruscant
hold on.
From Star
Let me
Wars.
turn this down, actually.
What you're seeing here is the tip of Mount Umate, one of the last remaining natural landscapes. And that's on level 5,216. There's
5,000?
No sea, just layers and layers of human settlement.
I didn't know there were that many.
Inspired by Trantor, which is another planet-wide city from Isaac Asimov's Foundation series. And both these cities
that one's way bigger, but has less
when your
people.
city spans a planet and your empire spans a galaxy, you need top-down rules with extreme power to keep things in order.
Extreme power, they said.
But this extreme centralization also makes it extremely fragile. Ancient Rome,
low-key.
collapsed when the grain ships.
Just like when
now scale
when the
that
Emperor
to a
got clapped and the Death Star
and
got
what we
clapped.
get is
It was
not
kind
a
of
steady
over.
decline, but
I mean, it took a minute, but
spectacular collapse. So
then they had the First Order and all that.
Just, can we build one? It's, could we build one that doesn't collapse under its own weight?
Let's see.
Coruscant. It's almost the same size as the Earth, but it's home to 1 to 3 trillion people across roughly 5.
Yo, 1 to 3 trillion is crazy.
With 100% of the planet's surface covered in urban development. For
Jeez,
reference, roughly 29% of the Earth is land surface, and less than 1% of that is urban development. So
that's crazy when you think about it. Whoa, less than 1% of the Earth is urban development, but yet it's causing global warming and all that to increase. What is that saying? That's so crazy. Like, human urban development isn't even taking up that much space. Granted, like, it's 30%, but like 2.2% of it is like cities and all that, right? And I would imagine like some sort of factories, but a large part of it is probably like a large part of the land part of it is probably like the agricultural development and things like that. Because urban development is very different from agricultural development. That's what I would have to imagine, right?
Less than a quarter of 1%
a quarter
of Earth. Coruscant,
but it's 100% of Coruscant.
So
I wonder what the pollution is like. There has to be like crazy pollution on that planet. How?
Illustrates it.
How's that even possible?
This section is the upper level, but the top of the upper level is what the fans call the
emergent layer. That's like the top layer of Coruscant.
But it's got huge symbolic and political weight, with some of the wealthiest
got the Chancellor in there.
Galaxy living here. And they, of course, enjoy.
Yeah, I gotta keep watching Andor. Actually, I gotta finish it with a
Federal District, Monument
couple of the
Plaza,
homies,
and the Temple Precinct. They're all located in this area. Just below is a super dense layer where most of Coruscant's population live and work. You can find almost every imaginable industry here, and it contributes to a huge part of the planet's economy. And below that, we have the underworld. There's some extensions.
The underworld, yep. Now we've seen some of these.
We get slums,
like during Ahsoka.
Illegal operations. That's actually a key piece of some of Coruscant's most profitable industries.
Not Ahsoka, but like some of her arcs.
Quite far from the Republic's control. And at the lowest floor, we have
it's like the slums, right?
Guts of the city, with machines that keep the planet alive, like power plants and water reservoirs. It's extremely hot and polluted, but maintenance crews often do work and live for months in this area, because the transfer back home
Oh yeah, there's
to the
that
canopy
shaft.
is just too long to do on a regular basis. And the way they build these layers is actually super interesting. So,
Is it?
like I said, Coruscant is inspired by Trantor, but the way they grow is very different. Essentially, Trantor digs downward, and Coruscant builds upwards. Trantor, very early on, set a fixed dome, and that's where the Empire sits. Once they standardize the first layer, it grows downwards, apparently because
Does
the
it get
air
better?
keeps getting toxic. So the top layer stays nice and organized, and all the messiness, it settles underneath as the population grows. Now, Coruscant...
That's like the same thing as Coruscant,
It
right?
doesn't have a fixed top layer. Every few centuries,
thought I
they
did.
build a new mega level, and it recrowns a new top.
Oh.
And each deck could be something like hundreds or thousands of levels. So think of it as kind of a highly planned mega project. And the moment that a new deck is put up, the city
So it
starts
just
to build
expands?
under it. But the further you go down, and the further from the planned top, we start to get retrofits and infills and illegal decks. So we have
makes
the
sense.
planned layer above and increasingly ad hoc layers.
How do they have all the manpower to manage all those? How are they doing that?
Of layers and layers have created what we
And where
call
do people?
a
Oh, they
vertical
just cremate
chart in its
people.
purest form, where you're stratified by height, but also by light and heat and power access and time. It is pretty dystopian, but there is actually a real-world framework for a planet-wide city.
Really?
In the 60s, where all the crazy things happened, it felt like a planet
Tokyo
city
Olympiad.
could actually happen. The global population was growing at the fastest rate in history, especially in cities. And naturally, architects and planners were asking, what happens when the city doesn't stop growing? A lot of crazy projects came out during that time. And that's when an architect by the name of Konstantinos Doxiadis started sketching his idea of a planet-wide city and called it an ecumenopolis. But what's interesting is that he believed,
Why did he come up with that
if
name?
we carefully guide the growth with proper planning, a planet city
Demon City?
actually wouldn't be that bad. His method was a scale model for urban growth, starting from the smallest possible unit, a single person, then a household, then a neighborhood,
40
then
people,
a city, a metropolis, an epiropolis, a continent scale city, and finally the ecumenopolis. The key unit here is a single person's daily walking radius, which varies depending on the type of settlement. Historically, the center gets defined when you overlap these walking fields and has led to cities around 50,000 people. But now with faster modes of transportation, like roads or rail, or in Coruscant, sky lanes, cities can grow beyond this. But for Doxiadis, we still have to keep this daily walking radius around these new transit hubs. But a working community unit is also defined by what it contains, in addition to this proximity rule.
Nature,
and these are the elements that it must contain. So Doxiadis' planet-wide city, it grows not by decking mega levels, but by tessellating human-scale cells into linear urban corridors that link up over time until they form a planet-wide web. He called the study Echistics, a system for how settlements grow and interconnect. And the system ensures that no matter how much you grow, it grows with a person.
So it grows with scale.
His version of an ecumenopolis,
and not like
it didn't
scale
thousands of levels.
with growth.
Okay,
that makes
so
sense.
in order to calculate this, Doxiadis took the average global density for built areas, giving you roughly 9,000 people per square kilometer. So if we covered 100% of the Earth's land surface, like Coruscant, theoretically, we could hold 1,336 billion people. But Doxiadis
that's not even
we
like
should reserve at least 50% of that land for
the oceans
and nature. And he also said the ideal living environment should be close to the countryside or recreation and open spaces. which took up about 2/3 of that remaining land.
Mm.
This will reduce the potential population to around 223 billion, lowering the average density to around 3,000 people per square kilometer. In fact, this was his ideal number.
He's thinking
Now,
correctly, yeah,
that's
because he's
roughly
like,
a
you can't just
quarter
like throw
of
off the
Coruscant's
balance and be like,
population.
okay, it's all urban development. Nah, you got to maintain all the natural elements as well. So that's an interesting plan.
So
But okay, how does that
this is
expand to
much
the outer
lower.
ones?
But that's also roughly the population density of this city, Camden, New
Philadelphia?
Jersey.
Oh,
Nowhere close to the 5,000 levels in Coruscant. We haven't
okay.
factored in the land that we're going to need for food, which does bring that number
Yeah.
down quite a lot. But
Mm-hmm.
if
Agricultural.
223 billion people takes up around 15% of the
But for
planet.
Coruscant, it's different because, like, resource-wise, those resources, a lot of them can, like, come from other planets. So it's not like you even need to keep it there. Or that will need to keep it there. Because, in fact, that's, like, what they do, I'm pretty sure. It's like they import the agricultural things from, like, surrounding planets in the system. Right?
Shouldn't 1 trillion technically be closer to like 65% of the Earth's surface, not 100% across 5,000 levels? So what's going on here? Why
That's
does
crazy. I had
Coruscant
no
have
idea
so
Coruscant was
many
that big.
levels? Well, let's look at how Coruscant was built. By the way, this is our best guess based on the research. The
Okay.
phasing is not
How does it
specific.
keep building? Like, I want to know how it keeps building outside the atmosphere. Or, like, not outside the atmosphere, but, like, how is it, like, managing within the actual planet's atmosphere?
Stated in the canon.
How does that not
So
change
if you have a
things?
different idea, let me know in the comments. So first, they picked a planet that was already urbanized as the galactic capital, and it was really for practical reasons because it sat at the nexus of these major hyperlanes, so it just made sense for it to become the political and trade hub. Then they established a center point of that planet, and that will be the Senate district. They also set the official ground plane above the existing urban fabric. And they made a rule you can build under it, but never above it. Then, since
Wait,
it's.
what?
And they made a rule you can build under
No new mega levels are allowed? Oh, okay.
it, but never above it. Then, since it's the capital of the friggin' galaxy, the center gets protected and layered with infrastructure for power and services or climate control. Everything within a certain radius of the
Okay.
center in the
So that makes
horizontal
sense.
and vertical direction is built out to serve the center. At the same time, a lot of the economy and industry start to cluster around the center as well. But in order to build and feed all of this, they also set up dedicated industrial areas like the works. Later,
The
as
works.
factories move off the world, a lot of these areas get abandoned. But once they establish this core kit with infrastructure, with roads and power and services going to the center, this thing is copied across different districts, which is what I think these nodes are.
Yeah,
It
that's
might
what these,
look
like, circles are.
decentralized, but really it's centralized because most of these are specialized districts that still serve the center. And all of the standards and budgets and regulations for these cloned hubs still come from the center. So it's really a hub and spoke city model. But here's
That's
where it
cool.
gets interesting. At a certain point, each of these districts hit a wall, or what we
Okay.
call a threshold cliff. In traditional
that?
urban planning, this is a point where it becomes less and less efficient to expand horizontally. And it's essentially the same principle here, but in Coruscant, it would be anything beyond this core kit radius in the horizontal and vertical direction.
That makes sense because it
'Cause
would just
up to
slow
a
things
point,
down, right?
Density pays, but once that core kit is full, expanding the district horizontally gets more expensive. Every
Yeah.
new block at the edge forces you to do expensive upgrades. You can add a little area, but you pay for it, and that's the cliff. So in most
Yeah, I
cities,
figured as
that's
much.
when they pivot vertically.
Vertical.
Stack proximity instead of running miles of new infrastructure. Sometimes
They
the
said, "We're
cliff
going
is
higher."
geography, but in most cases, it's the design. Radial cities with a centralized core hit the limit much faster than cities with grids with multiple cores. But in Coruscant, we are not just building taller buildings, but we're stacking entire new decks And remember,
Yeah.
Coruscant is not just a political capital, it's also
It's
a
an economic
capital,
capital.
finance, and commercial hub.
Yep.
But to render this planet-wide city, you don't need a fusion reactor. You can do it
Is this an
yourself
ad?
with D5, who's the sponsor of today's video, and
D5?
HP, who sent us this insane portable workstation.
Wow, cool.
The HP ZBook Fury G 1i18 looks like a regular laptop, but it actually packs a desktop class CPU inside. It was perfect for running D5, which is a real-time rendering tool built for architects and designers. In our case, we use it to visualize future worlds and explain complex ideas. And we took advantage of this.
It's really cool.
This was a game changer for our designs, especially when recreating vast worlds that didn't even exist in the films.
If you want to check out D5,
that is pretty cool.
HP's
D5, yeah.
laptop, maybe to create your own planet city. I'll leave the link in the description.
Link in the description.
So over the centuries, more
D5
and more
render.
to the city.
Hey, shout that out, man.
Keeps growing by layering and layering. And the reason why this is important
I'll open it in a new tab so I can
systems are not sized to serve this new level of growth. This is Dex's Diner in Cocoa Town, the industrial area. And this is their classic Shada Club sandwich. Because of course, this is
Camino
what a very future
what do you know?
Civilization but this simple sandwich, it's kind of a logistical miracle. Most of their food does come from other
Agri-world. Yep, that's what I thought.
But they do still need to store and sort and blast the food across thousands of levels. Meaning, you need warehouses, cold chain shafts.
Yeah, that scale is crazy, bro.
Waste digesters, or condensate capture, and massive crews to keep all of that moving. Water is just as complicated. Maybe
does Coruscant produce its own water?
Or ice rock imports, or maybe hydrogen hauled from gas giants mixed with local oxygen to make new water.
Yeah, so how does it get water?
In Kumanopolis, housing people is not necessarily the problem. It's the system.
Resources,
then there's the problem of waste. Apparently Coruscant produces 1 trillion tons of garbage per hour. And their
trillion, that makes sense.
Shoot it out into space. There's
so they just shoot it
5,000 pits across the planet.
Okay.
Where waste from the surrounding levels.
All right, that's kind of what I thought. But like, isn't that dangerous? For the where does it go after that? Is it just like floating around out there? I'm pretty sure it's not, right? Like, there's some kind of like ship out there that like collects it and then like takes it somewhere else, right? To a different system.
They get collected.
Like a trash system.
And then compacted into pods. And then they get launched into orbit on scheduled trajectories.
Into orbit? Why is it orbiting, bro? It's gonna be raining. It's gonna be raining crap.
District is known to be around 2 kilometers in diameter and 3 kilometers in depth. Of course, there could be local variations.
Okay.
But if we use that as a base, that's roughly 94,000 cubic kilometers, which is around 4 times all of the 5 Great Lakes combined. Before the waste to even reach these pits, that's sewage systems and recycling cascades and utility shafts that could span hundreds of levels. Now, let's consider heat. This is me, 100 watts of heat. And this is your city, which is typically 5 degrees hotter than the surrounding areas. But a planet-wide city...
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. How do they control the...
open oceans,
they said there was tools, right? They said there were tools to actually control that stuff. Like within that little radial model of the city to like control atmospheric elements.
Countryside, just 100 terawatts of heat with nowhere for it to go. But the real furnace is power use. Let's take Earth's average of 2.5 kilowatts per person. For 1 trillion people, that's 2.5 petawatts of heat that you have to dump into space continuously. Apparently, Coruscant is orbiting a much smaller sun compared to the Earth, so naturally it could be a little bit cooler, but that's still about 125 times the total human power used per day. So you need continental scale cooling and ventilation.
Yeah, for sure.
So the heat doesn't bleed.
Is that why that sun is so cool?
Apparently,
it can't be,
these
right?
underworld portals double as ventilation.
Wait, what?
Bleed between the levels.
What was that? Oh, unreleased. Okay, 1313.
Apparently, these underworld portals double as ventilation shafts, so maybe they feed vacuum chimneys that beam the heat into space. But
Okay.
all of this cooling requires energy,
Yep.
which needs an entire system of reactors and radiators. And those take up a lot of space. But the most interesting part of Star Wars, I think, is the transportation system, which is this incredible three-dimensional choreography, but not as efficient as you think. These are the main modes of transportation on Coruscant, organized from the most private to the most public. On the more
the air
private
speeders,
end,
yeah.
we have the personal air speeders,
Yeah.
which by default
They could be
use
getting
auto
stolen
navigation
like
on their
crazy.
sky lanes. And on the other end, we have the big passenger freightliners, which are kind of like your intercity buses. But this graph also aligns with the altitude. Upper tiers have these sky lanes, but the lower levels are much
They
more
just have
dense.
buses.
So flying is not really practical, and sometimes it's flat out restrictive. There's also just the sheer cost of owning a vehicle and the space that you're going to need for docking. And this traps people in their own strata, especially for the ones living below. This is the day
Keeping
of
people in the hood.
Amanda. She's a compliance analyst who rents a small place up in the mid-levels. She's usually up by 8, has a quick breakfast,
Compliance
and by 8:45,
analyst.
she's out the door and makes her way to the landing. By 9 o'clock, she's in her airspeeder. There's usually
Yo,
a bit of
that
traffic.
I'm not gonna lie. How do they deal with like the depression and stuff from like not seeing like natural lighting? Because they don't have like the natural sunlights on the lower levels, no? I would have to imagine. Like it's just artificial like city lights. It's like always nighttime. That has to be mad depressing, right?
During rush hour, but the stream keeps moving. Work is as usual. Monitor the lanes, clear
That'd be
some
so
approvals,
annoying.
answer some emails, and or holographic messages. For lunch,
just sounds
she
annoying, bro.
goes across town to Dex's diner, and she treats herself to a greasy slider. It's her guilty pleasure. And after work today, she's doing something a little adventurous. She
What's that?
drops a few thousand levels down to meet
Oh.
her friend at Desi's Noodles.
Oh.
The only place she's allowed access in the underworld. It's tiny and packed, but the bowl is worth the trip. Before climbing back into
Okay.
her airspeeder, she makes sure to leave enough tips. And she's home
Yeah, you
by
have to,
7:30.
So don't get robbed out here in the lower
Let's
levels,
take a
bro.
look at the day in the life
Said
of
level 3000. That's
He's
3K
a
game.
shaft maintenance tech, renting a room.
So you're not in the right level, playboy.
He's usually up before
Level 1313.
He
Block
gets a
K.
quick breakfast and leaves early because his lift is usually late or malfunctioning. But today, he's in luck. From his stop, he takes a ride with the utility tram, which takes
Okay.
him directly to work. He's a little early today, and he feels good.
Okay.
Work is as usual: valves, gauges,
What does he do?
leaks, and filing tickets for
Oh,
parts.
okay.
For lunch,
He's in the
he
factory.
heads over to Desi's Noodles. He usually eats by the staff window. Hot broth, quick line. And when he's done, he's back on station. After work,
Okay.
he heads across the line to meet up with his cousin. It's the usual chain. Elevator to a transfer hall, walkway to the local train, then a public airspeeder up a service shaft. And then
Okay.
a final tram on the other side. By the time they've hugged and traded some goods, it's time to head back before it's too late. On the return, a security sweep stalls the checkpoint, and the primary lift is down. Big surprise. So he takes the catwalk. He gets home just around 9. He washes up, goes to sleep, just to start all over again.
Why is he sleeping in there? What was he sleeping in it? What
Even
was
with the
that? Hold
fastest
on.
vehicle-
Nah, was he sleeping in like the little carbonite freezer? No way he was living like that.
that can literally cross the
Nah,
planet
that's
in
crazy.
less than a day. In a stacked city, it's not necessarily the distance, but the transfers that kill you. And over millennia of stacking, these paths harden into time cages. And people end up getting sorted by simply how far their hour can reach. And that's what we mean by the vertical trap. So the question is this unavoidable in an Ecumenopolis? We found a theory that might help us solve this problem. It's that the center of these concentric circles are actually the underground portals. And I think that's a pretty interesting idea. In our world, the most resilient megacities build centers around transit. Stations become these magnets for homes and jobs and shops, and developments concentrate around these hubs. But the most successful dense cities break these into multiple hubs. And they have a template that allow each of these transit hubs to become a kind of mini city. Let's take a
To
look
link
at
up to
Tokyo,
each other, yeah.
Instead of growing with one super core, they multiplied the core around the loop and they stitched it in. And each station has a combination of lots of different functions. They exit onto the streets around them with taller and denser buildings right at the exits. Then shops and services wrap around the concourse, meaning you can do your errands during your transfer. And you can keep most of your daily transfer within an hour. So
Wow,
Coruscant was designed around a
cool.
constellation of hollow cores.
Is she
Each
Japanese?
core bundles transit and utilities and heat risers and services, and neighborhoods densify
Are you-
within walking or very
Hold on,
close
what's
flying
that?
distance of it.
What channel
Trips
is
would
this?
shift within the core or one hop between cores, spreading the
Donnie?
demand sideways instead of stacking upward. More cores also means more surface area for cooling and logistics, distributing people and power and waste and heat, and easing the pressure to add more levels. But the hubs alone are not going to fix the problem. Because popular cores will still get crowded, and
Yeah.
rents are going to spike, and the poor will eventually get pushed down. And the gaps
Crazy.
between the cores suffocate. Heat, air, and water all fight for the same shafts. And especially with this redecking process, it means the levels below will, over time, inevitably suffer the same fate of bad air and no light. So
Bad
after
air and
the
no light is
many
crazy,
cores,
bro.
You do need a rule.
How do you
for
even
what
live
stays
down there?
open. This is Copenhagen's finger plan. The red are the station hubs, the yellow are the transit spines, and whites are the neighborhoods that develop around the hubs, and everything in green is left open. But these green, they're not just leftovers. They're essential infrastructure.
Nature. Yeah.
They're lungs and sponges, storing stormwater and letting cool air flow through the city. Their district-wide heating grid also allows them to reuse waste heat from plants or data centers. They're also treated as productive landscapes with swales
Like
and
parks?
ponds and wetlands and farms. And by adding this rule to Coruscant, we could reduce the distance between each neighborhood and their food. And by
Seriously?
doing this, we could reduce the amount of systems that we're going to need to move. Some of the organic waste could also be recycled back and fed to these green areas. Multiple openings means the city can breathe and drain and cool passively without literal pipes sticking out of the atmosphere to dump heat. And by creating multiple cores, the density can spread sideways. A city-wide planet can breathe and drain and feed, and maybe we'll get a slightly more livable Kumanopolis.
Yeah, Coruscant, like, if
But
you're not
unless
on, it
these
always,
clone hub
not gonna lie, it always kind of felt like if you're not on the upper levels of Coruscant, you might as well not even live there. That's honestly how it's felt looking at it, because it's like, yo, looking at those lower levels is like so depressing. Like, why is it better to be there than just like on some random outer rim planet, just like hacking it?
autonomy. This many core approach, it still acts centralized. And the
I guess a lot of
bottleneck
people
is
can't
still at the center.
leave, right? Because they don't have the resources.
There is this concept that kept coming up as we were researching Kumanopolis, the fractal.
Fractals.
Because at this scale, it just makes sense to have patterns that you can repeat from
Yeah.
block to region.
Like the
to
radial.
planet. Fractals
Yeah.
promise this perfect order. You can copy a pattern and scale it forever. But cities are human, not math. So yes, design the planet like a fractal with lots of planned and repeated pieces at every scale, but also design for the seams where it glitches. Because what keeps a planet city alive, I don't think
Is
it's
the people.
symmetrical perfection. It's the flexibility and adaptability. Let the center set the rules, and then get out of the way so that the millions of other decisions can be made at the local level. Even the clone army started from one template, but every clone ended up drifting. Cities will do that too. So if an Ecumenopolis works at all, it's not going to be because the crown micromanaged perfection. It's going to be because the map can survive on imperfection. So what do you guys think? Do you like this topic? And what do you guys think we should cover next? Let me know.
Nah, that's a solid point.
And if you want any of the other...
Not only for city building, but for like anything at scale.
And with that, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!
Hey, W video, Dami. Appreciate that, man. W video. Yeah, nah, that's pretty lit, though. I feel like that's a good point for a lot of different things as far as like scaling wise. If it's flexible without being able to like be perfect to be flexible, 100%. But yeah, with that being said, hey, that's gonna be the video. Let me know if y'all liked it. If y'all did, go ahead and drop a like, leave a comment down below what you thought, and you know, subscribe for more, and subscribe to Dami. And we're gonna be out of here for now. Bye. Catch you in the next one.